All right, so picking up where we left off before the break, Islam. So what was Arab society like when Muhammad began to write the ideas that would become the core of Islam? Remember, Muhammad was just this merchant, okay, doing his merchantly job in Mecca. And all of a sudden, Allah started to talk to him. And I'm sure at first it was awkward. I'm sure at first he was kind of like, did you hear that? Hello? Wait, who said that? Right? So I think once he finally got off the initial sort of shock of it, he came to an acceptance. And then, of course, he went home and told his wife and his family. And I'm sure they were probably like, Muhammad, are you feeling okay? What happened? Is everything all right? And eventually, of course, they didn't believe it, but then they came to accept it. And then, okay, Muhammad's now speaking through, or I'm sorry, God. Now, remember, the word for God in Arabic is Allah. So it's not this separate God. In fact, remember, all three religions, major religions, we should say, 3 of the 5 major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all believe in the same God. It's all the same God. It's just the Arabic word for God is Allah. Okay, that's the difference. So anyway, Muslims believe, okay, Muhammad is the final prophet. Okay, all those other prophets are cool. Like, yeah, Jesus, cool. Abraham, cool. David, cool. Moses, good dude. Okay, but Muhammad, he's the one, God spoke through him. He's the vessel. Okay, now before Muhammad began to write down the ideas of Islam, Arab society was intensely tribal, very, very split up into factions. They were very tribal. You stayed within your tribe. It also was a melting pot of various monotheistic religions like Christianity and Judaism. So all in the same area, this Arabian Peninsula, which we know now today is sort of, the current day Saudi Arabia. Okay, this whole area, you had 3 sort of monotheistic. Remember, monotheistic means only one God, which that was a radical idea back in the day. Okay, before that, you had religions that believed in many gods. You had some civilizations like the ancient Romans and Greeks that believed in many gods. Yeah, they had their like one sort of Zeus-like figure, but you had your god of the ocean, and you had your god of love, and you had your god of war, and you had your god of lightning. There was like all these gods controlled this stuff, and you would sort of pray to these various gods. So this idea of there being just one was a radical belief. Okay, and all 3 of them were there. All right, so I gave you a lot more than what the answer is, but it's to help sort of you haven't thought about this for over 2 weeks. Okay, next, right, let's go right across here. How is the Quran different from other religious books of the Abrahamic faith? Okay, so the Quran, and really the proper way to spell that is you could put an apostrophe in between the U and the R, but you can also write it like this. The Quran is seen as the actual word of God, okay, to Muslims. Now, Islam and Muslim, people confuse this all the time, okay, because they're 2 different words. Islam is the religion, and literally Islam means submissive. You submit to the will of God. Islam is submitting to the will of God. Muslims are people who practice Islam, okay? Now, it gets confusing because we're used to like Christians practice Christianity. So you have that sort of common Christ theme going through the words. Muslim and Islam are 2 different words, okay? Islam is the religion. Muslims are the followers of the religion. I hope that clears it up, okay? So Muslims see the Quran as the actual word of God. So when they open up the Quran and read it, to them, they are reading God's voice. It's God's voice in the book. Where the Holy Bible, all right, the Old and New Testaments, the Torah in the Jewish faith, these are human beings' interpretations of the teachings of God. That's a big difference. Okay, so even though we're all praying to the same God, okay, all 3, and we seem like Christians, Jews, and Muslims, whoa, you couldn't get more different. Well, we all, if you are religious at all, we all pray to that same God. And quite honestly, we all acknowledge the same prophets for the most part. Moses is true for all 3. Jesus is all 3, except in the Christian faith, Jesus is interpreted as literally the Son of God, where Jews and Muslims are like, dude, he was a really awesome prophet, but he's not the Son of God. So there's a divergence, okay? But as different as we all think these are, they have their roots in almost the same things. All right. Why was the Ummah an important change to how people living in the Arabian Peninsula thought about communities during this era? Well, before the Ummah, Arabian society was very tribal, as I said up top here. The Ummah brought various tribes together to form a larger community of true believers. So the Ummah literally means true believers, okay? So the Ummah was important because it helped all these various tribes sort of form one large tribe of true believers, okay? Now I'm hoping right now, I mean, you were vigorously typing into your Chromebook, and that's the symbol for typing. How did Muhammad connect politics and religion? Well, he didn't separate civic and religious law. Okay, they were one and the same. What does the Quran say? That is how we govern ourselves in our first country, and then expanded really a whole empire. Okay, where other religions separated civil law and religious law. Civil meaning, just us people in a society. We made laws just as people in society, and then religions sort of made rules for if you follow this religion. Islam is not like that. Islam literally is the government's way of enforcing laws is based on the religion. And, whoa, hey now. How did Islam become so widespread, according to John Green? Because, John Green knows everything. Early Islamic society was really good at winning wars. And because of their success, more people decided to follow. So even though the Quran really kind of forbids war, it doesn't really look kindly on war, which you might go, really? How is all this happening with jihads and ISIS and that's a whole separate discussion. Okay, that is a radical fundamental group of Islam. That is really, they don't really represent the core of Islam and Islam's teaching for thousands of years. This is a radical faction, just like Christianity had its radical time period. Judaism had its radical time period. There's some really harsh words and punishments in the Old Testament. Okay, there's some harsh words in the Torah. An eye for an eye. All right, you poke out someone's eye, you get your eye poked out. Okay, you don't do that anymore. So Christianity, an example would be it's like if you I can't remember the two crops, but if you planted one crop next to another crop, like you had to sell your oldest daughter into slavery, like stuff that you'd be like, oh my God, really? Like what? Christianity and Judaism has moved on from some of those radical teachings. And Islam is going through that right now, many people would suggest. John Green argues that we don't learn much about Islam, usually because we don't see it as our history, even though our history is the history of people on the planet. All right, so what did he mean by this, and how does our sense of who we are today as a country or society influence what we learn? Well, here's the really basics of it. Our history is commonly taught based on where we believe we came from, therefore ignoring other civilizations and time periods. So guys, I've said this very openly to you, and we can open this up for discussion here real quick. So, most of us now in Ben Salem, one of the cool things I like about teaching here is we do have a pretty well represented cross section of the world here. It's not all just Judeo-Christian, meaning Jewish faith, Christian faith in this area. You have a strong Hindu contingent. You have a strong Buddhist contingent. You may have atheist. Where you don't have a religion that you follow, you don't believe in religion. So and I don't mean to leave out any others. But coming from this area, many of us that even still live here in Ben Salem, our ancestors, where do they most likely come from? Anybody? Where's most of our ancestors from that live here now? Anyone can jump. Europe. Yeah. Okay. A lot of America, of course, as you learn through American history, of course, people were living here beforehand, right? The Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, many Native American, Northern American tribes. Okay. Many native peoples were living here. But once Europeans sort of opened the floodgates, with the really the marking of Christopher Columbus, and we'll talk about that when we get to that unit. But once he sort of opened the floodgates, Europeans just came on over, and we've been here ever since. And of course, Asians as well. Okay, all right. But we tend to learn, when we teach you history in school, when you went through elementary school, you went through middle school, most of your history is either American history, so you learn about our history as a country. We're only 244 years old. Okay, or you learn about what? European history. Why? Because the bulk of us our ancestors come from Europe. So we learn about our people's history. And what don't you get most of the time? For many of you, this might be the first time you're learning anything about the Middle East. How many of you ever learned about Islam before in a history class? Or Buddhism? Or Hinduism? Or even Judaism? Or maybe even Christianity? Okay? All right, this is called world history, this class. It's not called European history. Now, we're going to talk a lot about European history because magnificent, marvelous things have come out of Europe and Asia, okay? But we don't talk a lot about Asia. We don't talk a lot about North Africa. We certainly don't talk about the Arab world in history. And we're about to find out all the amazing things the Arab world left us. And the Arab world made it possible for the Renaissance to happen in Europe. So many classes would start their course in Europe with the Renaissance. All right, they ignore the Dark Ages. Why are they called the Dark Ages? Well, because in Europe, they got away from intellectual curiosity. They became very about religion. All day long was religion, religion, religion. Now, I'm generalizing. Of course, some people still were into intellectual thought and science and medicine and things like that. But as a period, Europe went dark, while the Arab world, the time period we're studying right now, 1200 to 1450, lit up. All kinds of amazing things came out of this time period that influenced the people in Europe, and then they had an awakening, an enlightenment period. Okay, so that's why we're taking the time to study this stuff. All right, you all should be done that slide. Moving on. The next slide is belief systems. All right, this was based on an article. I just filled in the answers for you so that you have for notes. So why were Muhammad and his successors so successful at spreading Islam? Well, Islam spread to many areas of the world because of military conquest, positive messaging. People liked the messaging of Islam. Okay, as we're about to find out later down the page, women grew in stature in Islam. So areas of the world where women were much, much, much less than a man, Islam helped elevate the status of women. Political order and, of course, trade. Okay, so this is the reason why Muhammad and his successors were successful at spreading Islam, because the areas of the world that this went to, this was not good. Okay, politics were bad. Trade was bad. Trade does nothing but good things. Well, I shouldn't say nothing but. There are some negatives. But for the most part, trade is beneficial to the two people trading. Okay, trade's not bad. It can be bad, but for the most part, trade makes both people prosper, or else you wouldn't trade. Okay, think about in elementary school when you traded something, a lunch for something else. You both had a mutual interest. You both sacrificed something. You each gained something that you wanted. Okay, you both benefited from that transaction. What are the 5 pillars of Islam? You don't need to know what each one of them are, but it's helpful to know them. The Shahada, the Salat, the Psalm, the Zakat, and this is pronounced Hajj or Hajj. I've heard people say Hajj as well. Shahada is the tenet of, there's only one God, and that's Allah. You find that same tenet in Christianity. You find that same tenet in Judaism. Okay. The Zakat is the giving of alms to the poor. Okay, basically teaching you, hey, look, no matter what you have in life, there's someone else who has less than you. It would be a good thing as a person to reach out and help that person. Even if you don't have 2 nickels to rub together, there's still someone worse off than you. And is there something you can do to help them? And again, every of the Abrahamic religions now, we're talking about Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. They all come from Abraham, okay, in the area of the Middle East. They all teach that. The prayer, which is the Salat, I believe, the 5 prayers a day. Okay, of course, Christians and Jews pray. They don't have to pray 5 times a day and face Mecca, but they have their prayer rituals. And of course, the Psalm, which is the, I believe is the, what's it called? Fasting. You give up food for purity, for self-discipline, okay? How did the Ummah split early in Islam's history? Okay, so you're going to hear, and you may never have heard these terms before because you don't watch the news, but there are 2 major factions in Islam, the Sunnis and the Shias, okay? And how did this happen? Well, early on, once Muhammad died, this was the leader of Islam. Once Muhammad died, there was disagreement on who now should lead Islam. So, of course, there were a bunch in the beginning, but it ended up becoming down to 2 major people. And the Sunnis wanted one person to lead Islam, and the Shias wanted another person to lead Islam. And they've been fighting ever since, thousands of years. Okay, so make sure you have that typed in. What were the central practices of Sufism? Again, you can paraphrase this. Okay, Sufi practices have their foundation in purity of life. By the way, this is being recorded right now. So if you need to go back later on to you missed something or you didn't understand something, I'm going to set up. I already have a YouTube channel set up. I'm going to set that all up so this video goes right into the YouTube channel, and then you can hit the YouTube channel. Okay, so if you missed something, please don't panic, but you should be getting all this down right now. Sufi practices have their foundation in purity of life, strict obedience to Islamic law, and imitation of the Prophet. Okay, so this is what Sufists believe in Islam. Okay, that you should be pure in your life, that you have strict obedience to Islamic law. Remember, that is the law in terms of how you are in society. Okay, you don't have religious law and then societal law. In Islam, the religion is the law. Okay, and of course, you should work to be like Muhammad. Be like Muhammad. Through self-denial, careful introspection, and mental struggle, Sufis hope to purify the self from all selfishness, thus attaining ikhlas, absolute purity of intention and act. Little sleep, little talk, little food are fundamental, and fasting is considered one of the most important preparations for the spiritual life. Again, all religions sort of have that fasting because it's a chance for your body to heal itself. Instead of wasting its energy on digesting food, it could turn its attention towards healing and repairing cells and tissues. So a lot of religions look at fasting as a way of purifying yourself, and also sacrifice. Don't be selfish. Think of others before you think of yourself. Mystical experiences of the divine is also central to Sufism. Sufis are distinguished from other Muslims by their fervent seeking of which is dawq. I believe that's how you pronounce that. And if anyone is Islamic here and you have a different pronunciation, please feel free to jump in. I always like to learn if I'm pronouncing something incorrectly. A tasting that leads to an illumination beyond standard forms of learning. So, there's quest. You're going to learn in Islam. We learned about last week. We learned about the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, Iraq. Right? Did we learn that last week? Or I'm getting ahead of myself. It's okay. It's all relatable. They want to seek enlightenment. Like they have this thirst for knowledge. Okay, and that's awesome. I feel like that. Like I just always want to continue to learn and push the boundaries of what I know. However, the insight gained by such experience is not valid if it contradicts the Quran. So, like all things, it's like, well, if it's not in the Quran, can't really go with it. And obviously there's some limitations there. But at the end of the day, it's kind of choosing what you want to believe. All right, I have to get off of this full screen here for a second. There we go. Because I want to show you the our blurb about women. Because women get a raw deal in a lot of history. So you can see this kind of goes on. This is a little bit big here, and I'm going to blow this up. So how did early Islamic society view women? Well, in Islam, men and women were more equal in God's sight and are expected to fulfill the same duties of worship, prayer, faith, almsgiving, that's giving to the poor, fasting, and pilgrimage to Mecca. Okay, so women are expected to act and do the same as men. Where in before this early Islamic society took hold, this wasn't the case at all. Women were really lower on the rung than men were. Islam generally improved the status of women compared to earlier Arab cultures, prohibiting female infanticide and recognizing women's full personhood. So in other words, when Islam came along, they recognized women as like a whole person, where in early Arab societies, that's not how women were treated. And they prohibited female infanticide. You know what that is? It's the killing of female babies. Okay, so in the pre-Islam Arab world, it was not uncommon that if you had a girl as an infant, that they would kill the female. They wanted a male. Okay, so this was part of, and again, we look at this in 2020 and I'm like, how in the world could this possibly happen? But we're talking about a time period, and who knows what people were thinking in this time period. What we can all say is, hey, man, fortunately, we look upon this and we don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Although I will say there is still in Africa, there are still some segments and tribes that do awful things to their girls. There are still societies that don't even believe in educating girls. They don't value that a girl should be educated. They don't believe in wasting the time or resources. So, don't take that for granted. I know, thankfully, we live in an area where we don't believe that at all. And we work hard and still trying to achieve equal opportunity, not equal outcome, but equal opportunity for people. Don't take that for granted. Don't just think that's out there, because there are still parts of the world in 2020 that treat women this way. Islamic law emphasizes the contractual nature of marriage, okay, requiring that a dowry be paid to the woman rather than to her family, and guaranteeing women's rights of inheritance and to own and manage property. That's huge. Hey guys, in the United States, they did this in the Islamic world, okay, in the period of 1200 to 1450. The birth of our country 244 years ago, women were not allowed to own property. Okay, so keep that in mind. You guys didn't get the right to vote until 1920. Okay, so when we look back, on these, we're like, oh my God, how could they possibly do that? Well, in the United States, a female, you couldn't own property. You weren't allowed to vote. Okay, things have come a long way. We're still not there, but we're getting there. So just, be careful when you look back and you judge in history. Sometimes you don't have to look too far from your own area where you live, right? Women were also granted the right to live in a matrimonial home and receive financial maintenance during marriage and a waiting period following death and divorce. So women's rights, Islam, you can see why this really took off. Okay, it wasn't a secret why it took off. For a lot of people, this improved the quality of your life going into Islam. All right, slides 19 and 20 is what you were working on, and I looked through some of it. Some of you did a great job, and some of you barely did anything. That's when I let you work on your own. All right, I would like to do more of that because you are an honors class. You should be able to handle that. All right, but I don't want to have to lead you and hold your hand through everything. But I want you to go ahead and check what you have written. I'm going to go ahead and blow up the screen again. So this was the slide on Iraq's golden age. You were supposed to watch the video, the rise and fall of the House of Wisdom. So who founded the House of Wisdom? This was such a cool place. Here's the answer. And again, if you don't have it, you're typing in right now. Caliph Harun al-Rashid of the Abbasid dynasty in the 8th century. So that's the 700s. That's who founded the House of Wisdom, which was, again, in Baghdad. Where is Baghdad? What country is it in today? Baghdad? Anyone know? Where's Baghdad? Come on, we fought a war there. The first and second Gulf Wars. Where do you find current day Baghdad?
I'm gonna guess Iraq.
Iraq is correct.
I thought so. I was just hesitant.
It's okay. Don't be afraid of being wrong. I won't make fun of you that bad. All right. You're here to learn. It's okay to be wrong. All right. All right. So that's the answer for there. What different intellectual traditions became united under Muslim rule? Well, beginning as a project to protect knowledge, including philosophy, astronomy, science, mathematics, and literature, it quickly became, and is still considered today, a symbol of the merging and expansion of intellectual traditions from across different cultures and nations. Now, I know that's a lot of words, okay? But what different intellectual traditions became united under Muslim rule? Their quest for knowledge, their protection of knowledge. They excelled in astronomy. They excelled in philosophy, science, math. You guys like algebra? You can thank an Arab. This is where it comes from. During this time period, algebra. Do you like numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can thank an Arab. That's where it comes from. They're called Arabic numbers for a reason. Okay? Golden Age. You're going to go, wow, I thought only Europe had a Renaissance. Well, this is the Arabian Renaissance, during the period where Europe went dark. All right. How did the production of paper from China change learning? You probably could answer that without even having watched the video. Okay, so thanks to advances in paper production and bookbinding, knowledge and ideas could be exchanged with rapidity, which means really, really fast, enabling a climate of active academic enterprise to thrive. If we could write stuff down and we can mass produce it, we can send it out to many, 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 many people. And those people can read and they gain knowledge. And we all know that boys go to college to gain more knowledge, and girls go to Jupiter to get more smarter than boys. All right. What was the original purpose of the House of Wisdom? It's called the House of Wisdom. Gee, I wonder what its original purpose was. It came into being as a library, a translation institute, and academy of scholars from across the empire. Here's a really cool thing about the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. It was open to all scholars from anywhere. It wasn't just Arabian or Islamic scholars. You're a Christian scholar, come on in. You're Jewish and you're a scholar, come on in. Let's talk. Let's exchange ideas and information. How cool would a place like that be today? We kind of have that. You could possibly say the internet, but we also know the internet is the place where we watch cats play with yarn. So I don't know about how much of a House of Wisdom it is. All right. What was the main project? Well, the main project of the House of Wisdom was collecting and translating numerous works from the Greek literary canon, which established an enormous influence on Arab thought. So the Arabs are like, dude, what did the Greeks know? I want to know. What did the Greeks know? We're not going to invent our own knowledge. These people were alive for thousands of years, these Greeks and Romans. Let's learn from them, and then we can advance what they know. Where Europe was like, dude, get your Greek and Roman crap out of my face. Okay, I'm Roman Catholic. I'm here, we're doing the whole church thing right now. All right, get your secular worldviews out my house. Okay, Arabs are like, dude, bring it. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, or Socrates, as people like to say. All right, Plato, I think I said that. Hippocrates, not Hippocrates. Hippocrates, Euclid, okay? Some believe, and I'm sort of getting ahead of myself, but you won't remember until I just say it again in about 2 months, that, the heliocentric solar system that we all say Copernicus is credited with saying, hey guys, the Earth's not the center of the universe, it's the sun. And people are like, heretic, get out of here. We're going to put you in jail. Don't you say such things. It's clearly the Earth is the center of the solar system. You maniac. Okay. Well, Copernicus likely, because he was an educated cat, likely got his information from Arab text, because we see in the Arab world that people were sketching out and kind of figuring out that maybe the sun, maybe this bright thing that goes across the sky isn't actually moving. We're the ones actually moving. because I can also see that these planets also seem to move around, and that's where we think it came from. And last but not least, what is Al-Khwarizmi renowned for? He's the guy you can all thank for creating algebra. His famous book of Restoring and Balancing, from the Arabic Kitab al-Jabir wa Muqbala. How do you like that pronunciation? How did I do? Which today gives us our term algebra. Thanks, dude. So we have Al-Khwarizmi giving us algebra. We have Isaac Newton giving us calculus. We're going to learn about him in the Age of Enlightenment. Isaac Newton's like, I want to be able to explain planetary motion to my friends. And this is all during a plague, by the way. This is all during while he was quarantined. And he couldn't explain planetary motion. So all the math that existed at that time did not enable him to explain how planets move. So he created a math to explain how planets move, and that is known as calculus. So aren't you glad you attended history today? All this knowledge that's being dropped. Knowledge bombs left and right. All right, and then last but not least, come on. Technology, technology. Computers do whatever they want. Oh, okay. We've about had enough of this. Let's try it again. Computer is running very slow. This is fun. I'm going to stop my screen share, see if that helps. Hold on. We'll get this back in order. We're almost there, guys. Hang in with me. All right. Houston, we have a problem. Stay with me. All right. And then this should be slide. I want to say 20 or 19. 20, I was right. All right, ready? And this is slide 20, and this is it for the day. And this will have your notebook up to date. All right, I don't know why that is freezing up on me. So it asks you, what did the Abbasids place such a strong emphasis on learning? Okay, so this is slide 20, everybody, first block. We're gonna have to do it this way because my computer is sort of frozen. So it's okay, there's only 5 of them and we'll knock it right out. So they were inspired by verses of the Quran. Remember, the Quran is spelled Quran. So they were inspired by verses in the Quran and they pushed for advances in science, art, and commerce. So they pushed for advances in science, art, and commerce. Directly across, it says, what were the unique feature, or what was the unique feature of the Islamic Golden Age? Well, its unique feature was inclusivity, which means equal access and opportunity. So when you're inclusive, it's called inclusivity. I can spell that for you. So it is known for its unique feature of inclusivity. I-N-C-L-U-S-I-V-I-T-Y. Inclusivity. And that was unique. It was like, hey man, come one, come all. You're a scholar, come on into the house of wisdom. Let's hash this out. Let's learn. All right, very important. What advances were made in the fields of medicine and healthcare? Well, we can thank the Arab world, the Islamic world, early Islamic world, for giving us medical encyclopedias and textbooks. They created a pharmacy and the idea of hospitals. And these hospitals were open 24 hours a day. And they had to take care of everybody. So universal health care. In other words, you couldn't be turned away just because you were poor. This is in the year 1200. We don't have that in a lot of areas of the world today still. You don't have insurance? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. The Islamic world at this time believed, no, everyone gets taken care of, regardless of your wealth. What is Sufism? That's the right-hand column. It is mystical Islamic philosophy that promotes peace, education, and philanthropy. Philanthropy, which is like the word phil, P-H-I-L-A-N-T-H-R-O-P-Y. That is giving, to the poor, giving to people less fortunate than you. It's called being a philanthropist. You are giving of people less fortunate than you. So Sufism is mystical Islamic philosophy that promotes peace, education, and philanthropy. And last but not least, right at the bell, why is Sufism still practiced today? Because it's seen as an alternative to radical forms of Islam, which is what we see on the news. ISIS, Taliban. All right, so it is seen as an alternative to radical forms of Islam. And right at the bell, you should have now everything filled up to slide 20 in your slide deck. Tomorrow, we will continue on with vocabulary. Slide 26, we're going to start with. All right, so hopefully you have all that filled out. This is recorded, so you can check on it later. I'll probably have it up later tonight on YouTube. So if you missed anything, you can come back and grab it and make sure that your notebook is up to date. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.